Son of a... So, as you already know, the release window for Breath of the Wild 2 has been pushed back until spring of 2023. While this might stink for anyone who has been anticipating this game, there is a bright side to this. The increased time of development means that the Zelda team will be able to focus on development for this game and turn it into a fitting sequel that isn't just riding on the hype of the first game. However, that does mean that we have to wait even longer now. But as I have learned from experience, counting down the days until something comes out just makes the wait even more painful. So instead, let's focus on some other great games while we wait for Breath of the Wild 2 to come out. These are games that I think Zelda fans will enjoy. However, I don't want to be that guy who looks at reviews or the cover of a game before recommending things. So, on this list, I will only be recommending games that I have played that I think other Zelda fans will enjoy. So, games like the YS series, Genshin Impact, or other games that copy Breath of the Wild won't be on here, because I haven't played them yet. However, this is where you, the viewer, comes in. Please watch this video until the very end, and if there is a game on here that I didn't mention that you think other Zelda fans will enjoy, please leave a comment and tell me what games you recommend. Well, I better stop making this intro so long, so I'm just going to jump into the first recommendation. Anyone who knows me should not find this first recommendation surprising, but if you're waiting for Breath of the Wild 2 to come out, then I strongly recommend the Xenoblade Chronicles series. And would you look at that, Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2 are both on Nintendo Switch, with the third game just around the corner. Oh, and if you have a Wii U, then you need to check out Xenoblade Chronicles X, because it hasn't been ported over to Nintendo Switch yet. There are a lot of things that I think fans of the Legend of Zelda series will love in Xenoblade Chronicles. These games have epic settings they take place in, thrilling stories, fun gameplay, and open-world exploration in some of the coolest environments. As you can tell, I really like the series. But my reasons for recommending the Xenoblade Chronicles series to people who enjoy Breath of the Wild runs a lot deeper than just appreciating these games. No, the big reason that I am recommending this series is because of the studio that makes the Xenoblade games, Monolith Soft. Monolith Soft has made a few of their own games, but they have lent a ton of support to other Nintendo games like Splatoon, Animal Crossing, and the Legend of Zelda series on numerous occasions. But Breath of the Wild was a little different, since the Zelda team needed a little more help. So, 50 of the 100 employees that worked at Monolith Soft at the time helped make Breath of the Wild and the topographical design. That huge, immersive, and inspiring open world in Breath of the Wild is because of Monolith Soft. So, if you have been looking for another game with that open world goodness that was in Breath of the Wild, then you should most definitely check out the Xenoblade Chronicles games. Of course, there are other games that could also scratch that open world itch. But first, a word from today's sponsor! Oh, would you look at that, it's no one. Well then, back to the video. I don't even know how to introduce this next recommended game, because everyone has already been singing its praises from top to bottom, and most people have already checked this game out. But here it goes. I think you guys should play Elden Ring. Elden Ring is the latest, the greatest, the biggest, and most ambitious game that has been made by From Software. With the world drafted up by George R.R. Martin and the game design experience of Hideteki Miyazaki, Elden Ring has become the most popular game of this year, and it completely deserves it. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the recent delay was because the Zelda team looked at Elden Ring's recent success and popularity, looked at what they'd been working on with Breath of the Wild 2, and said to themselves, yeah, we're gonna need a little more than a few DLC ideas if we want to make a worthy sequel. This open world is huge and fantastic. This might be the first open world game by From Software, but they have done a really good job when it comes to open world freedom. So good, in fact, that it is on par with Breath of the Wild's open world. And I think fans of Breath of the Wild will enjoy Elden Ring with all these subtle similarities that they share. You can tell that From Software took inspiration from Breath of the Wild when it came to designing Elden Ring. And you know what? I love it. It's great to see someone take real inspiration from Breath of the Wild instead of ripping off mechanics in lazy ways. And while it has been fun to see the inspiration of Breath of the Wild in Elden Ring, I would love to see Breath of the Wild 2 take a little bit of inspiration from Elden Ring. After all, Elden Ring handles their underground areas really well. And it would be cool if the Zelda team took a few notes and applied it to Breath of the Wild 2. And in case you're wondering, yes, this game is very challenging, but still super fun. However, if you don't want to spend 5 hours of your life getting the snot kicked out of you by some crazy boss, then you might want to check out Horizon Zero Dawn. Horizon Zero Dawn takes place in a post-apocalyptic version of our world, where humanity lives in nomadic tribes. And the best part is that our world is now ruled by giant machines. The game focuses on Aloy, a young girl who is trying to find out who her mother is. To do so, she will need to explore this crazy open world and uncover secrets about the ancient past, while also fighting intimidating machines with her bow and spear. This is an awesome game. In fact, I almost put this game further down on the list, but then when I started playing it to get the appropriate footage for this video, I realized how much I missed playing this game. Horizon Zero Dawn might be labeled as an RPG, but the game has a lot of cool mechanics that make it stand out from other games. And I love the combat in this game. Analyzing a target and then exploiting its weaknesses and peeling your mechanical prey apart is one of the most satisfying things you can do in a video game. But another reason I am recommending this game so highly is because Breath of the Wild stole a lot of Horizon Zero Dawn's thunder. Breath of the Wild released just 1 week after Horizon, and I feel kind of bad for this game because I honestly think it deserves more love than it got. So if you are bored while waiting for Breath of the Wild 2, I highly recommend picking up Horizon Zero Dawn. However, while I love the first game, I cannot share the same praise for its sequel, Horizon Forbidden West. And to save some time, this is what I think of Horizon Forbidden West. This game straight up sucks. The story is awful. The mechanics from the first game are butchered, it rips off the paraglider from Breath of the Wild without any inspiration, and the game runs like a car with a javelin jammed through the engine. Do not buy Horizon Forbidden West. The first game, great, but the sequel is terrible. You may have noticed that I don't have any footage of this game in this video. That's because I don't want to waste my valuable time replaying this piece of trash. Just do yourself a favor and play Elden Ring instead. Oh wait, I'm supposed to be recommending games and not talking about my immense disdain for Horizon Forbidden West. Whoops, sorry about that. Speaking of Elden Ring, my next game recommendation are the rest of the games by From Software. These are some of my favorite dark fantasy games that really satisfy that need to explore. However, these games aren't like Elden Ring in that they are open world. No, these are meticulously designed levels that feel like dungeon crawling. And I think we can all say that most people who played Breath of the Wild are still hungry for more dungeons. And hey, these games will more than supplement that dungeon exploring fun. Although these games do have a reputation for being difficult. I'm here to tell you that these games are a walk in the park. If that park had angry mobs trying to kill you, rabid dogs, and a couple of trees that are trying to grab the player. Okay, yeah, these games can be difficult. However, there are very few instances where I would say the deaths you receive aren't fair. You usually know why you died in one of these games. So finding a foe and adjusting your playstyle to claim victory is massively satisfying. The games that I especially recommend are Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, and Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Although I haven't played Demon Souls yet. Hey, is anyone here tired of me recommending games that aren't available on Nintendo Switch console? Well then good news for you, because the next game on this list is Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity. Captain Obvious strikes, but it won't be the last time. Yeah, I'm aware that the Breath of the Wild fandom has already picked this game up. But I just wanted to be thorough in my recommendations, just in case there was that one guy out there that hasn't played this game yet. Age of Calamity takes place 100 years before the events in Breath of the Wild, meaning that this game takes place when the Great Calamity happened. Although these events in Age of Calamity aren't the same as they are in Breath of the Wild, since there are some time-traveling hijinks. And as you could probably tell from the title of the game, this game follows that massive battlefield combat that is present in other Warriors games. And you know what? This game is tons of fun. Sure, the grass on the battlefield may take a toll on the game's performance, but overall, this is a super fun game that takes place in the Legend of Zelda universe that anyone who's looking forwards to Breath of the Wild will enjoy. But if you're looking for a more realistic and mature game experience, then I recommend you check out Ghost of Tsushima, developed by Sucker Punch Productions. Now then, I may have made a video where I talk about how certain elements of the story mode left me disappointed. Despite that, I still think Ghost of Tsushima is a great game that deserves the spotlight in this video. Ghost of Tsushima takes place during the Mongol invasion of Japan. After a humiliating defeat at the start of the game, the protagonist, Jin Sakai, sets off to free the people of Tsushima from the tyrannical Mongol invaders. It's a fun, historically based, open-world adventure with gorgeous views. Ghost of Tsushima also does this thing with its open world that makes it reflect the 3-act structure of the story, so that's cool. And speaking of the story, while I might have found 1 or 2 elements of the story disappointing, that doesn't mean I think the rest of the story is bad. In fact, I find the rest of the story really good. So if you're going mad while waiting for Breath of the Wild 2, then I think you will enjoy Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima may be available on both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, but the PS4 version runs pretty well, so I wouldn't recommend wasting your time trying to get a PlayStation 5. But I assume that if you are looking forwards to Breath of the Wild 2, then you already have a Nintendo Switch system. So this next recommendation might appease a few of you, because the next game on my list is Metroid Dread. I guess this would also be a good game to play if you're looking forwards to Metroid Prime 4 as well, whenever that comes out. And if you are worried that you need to play the previous Metroid games before you can enjoy this newest game, then don't worry. Metroid Dread can be explored by old fans and newcomers alike. And it especially helps that there is a story recap that is actually effective at summarizing the previous games. Metroid Dread is a side-scrolling adventure game, and features the legendary Samus Aran as she explores the strange world of Planet ZDR. And that's one of the great things about Metroid Dread, the exploration. This game actively rewards players for going out of their way to explore. And for those really crazy people out there are even rewards waiting for skilled players that are capable of sequence breaking the game. With the fun exploration, the awesome boss fights, and a surprisingly effective build-up of dread while running through the unfamiliar areas and enemy zones, Metroid Dread is one of my most recommended games for players waiting for Breath of the Wild 2. I'm having a hard time thinking of a good transition, so I'm just going to blurt out my next game. I highly recommend players who are waiting for Breath of the Wild 2 to check out Santa Monica Studios' recent game, God of War on the PlayStation 4. The reason that I am recommending God of War is because this game does something that I didn't expect it to pull off. This is a cinematic game that is both fun to play and watch. There are a lot of cinematic story-driven games out there, but a lot of these games are more fun to watch rather than playing it for yourself. Games like those made by a Telltale or Naughty Dog fall under this category, where I would much rather watch a Let's Play of the game online. However, God of War is one of the only cinematic games I have ever played that is just as much fun to watch as it is to play. If you know about God of War, then you know what you're getting into. The God of War series takes place in ancient mythological settings, and the main character, Kratos, kills the gods of those mythologies. Now then, I'll admit that I skipped the first God of War games because I wasn't interested in all the glorified violence and nudity of those games. However, God of War diverts from the previous games quite a bit, since there are no naked people, and the violence isn't the anatomy lesson in disguise that it was in previous games. This game also introduces Kratos' son, Atreus, who brings a much more caring and wise version of Kratos out of himself. God of War is a heavy story where Kratos has to deal with loss, raising his son, and fighting off the gods at the same time. The story is fantastic, spectacular, and sets up the sequel game, God of War Ragnarok, almost perfectly. And yeah, I think that you should play it if you haven't already. But you know what? Another great way to look forwards to something is to look back at the past. And since we are all looking forwards to a new Zelda game, I can't think of a better way to look forwards to Breath of the Wild 2 other than playing some older Zelda games. Oh, would you look at that? Captain Obvious has struck again. But seriously, we should try replaying some old Zelda games, because there are a lot of really good games to choose from. I especially recommend playing The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, and Wind Waker. All of these games I just listed have HD ports on either the Nintendo Switch or the Wii U. Twilight Princess is a title where you can shapeshift into a wolf and run around as a good boy. Wind Waker is a game that deserves better recognition because the art style is beautiful and the exploration of an open sea is thrilling. And I seriously doubt that Nintendo would release Skyward Sword on Nintendo Switch under normal circumstances. They are most definitely buttering us up for those floating sky islands in Breath of the Wild 2. The point I am trying to make here is, what better way to get excited for Breath of the Wild 2 other than playing some of these old classic games? There are a whole bunch of other games in the Legend of Zelda series that I didn't mention here, so there isn't exactly a lack of content for us to sink our teeth into. So go out there, get your Nintendo Switch, hunt down a Wii U, or boot up that emulator because there are a lot of great Zelda games for us to enjoy. But if you have already played all the Zelda games, then there might be one game that will satiate that thrill of open-air freedom. Just Cause 3. Now, this might seem like a strange recommendation at first for people who are looking forwards to Breath of the Wild 2. After all, this game isn't on Nintendo consoles, it doesn't take place in a fantasy setting, and there are far more guns and mayhem than any of the other games I have recommended previously. Well, the reason that I am recommending this game is because of the open-air freedom that is given in Just Cause 3. Breath of the Wild wasn't the first game that had a paraglider of sorts. However, Just Cause 3 stands out because of how well they executed that open-air concept. In fact, I'd be willing to say that Just Cause 3 pulled off the open-air concept even better than Breath of the Wild. The main character, Rico Rodriguez, is given a grappling hook, a parachute, and a wingsuit to navigate the empty space around him. Players can zip around with the grappling hook and then deploy the parachute in order to stay in the air and rain fire down on the DRM. And if you want to get somewhere fast, players can transition seamlessly between the parachute and the wingsuit to fly around. And I've gotta say, flying around the map with the wingsuit makes for some really great ambient sound to relax to. And then, when you get bored of flying around the skies, you can just drop into a military base and cause tons of explosions. Or you can steal a sports car and drive around at Mach speeds. Or you can complete challenges to unlock new skills. There's a lot of stuff to do in this game. And sure, the game might not run the best, but unlike some other games, the glitches and bugs that are in this game only augments the chaos and fun of Just Cause 3. Just Cause 3 is a super enjoyable game that I fully believe fans of Breath of the Wild will enjoy just because of the open air fun alone. And my next recommendation for games I think you might enjoy is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I don't think I need to say anything else, except to mention how adorable Kirby is. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is the newest Kirby game on Nintendo Switch. It's a fun adventure taking place in loads of abandoned ruins, and with some awesome gameplay that will bring a smile to your face. How can you not be amused by mouthful mode? And that's the thing about this game. Kirby and the Forgotten Land has some really fun abilities that encourage exploring and finding new secrets. And these secrets are everywhere, and hidden in some really clever locations. So if you're one of those people who are falling into a black abyss of depression while waiting for Breath of the Wild 2, Kirby and the Forgotten Land will be able to cheer you up with its fun exploration and cheerful characters. Holy cow, did you watch all of my recommended games? Hey, good job! But now it's your turn. Leave a comment on what games you think should have been in this video. If you think that Skyrim or Bayonetta should be on here, let me know. My library of games that I play might not be the same as someone else. So I would love to hear what games you think people should play while waiting for Breath of the Wild 2. So don't worry, with a little bit of patience and some good games to pass the time, the wait for Breath of the Wild 2 will be much more bearable. although I know I can still wait. I still need to eat paper when the game comes out because I had to open my stupid mouth in one of my previous videos. Now, if you will excuse me, I have a few Xenoblade Chronicles videos I would like to make before Xenoblade 3 comes out, a whole bunch more of Elden Ring that I want to explore, and I should probably make another Avatar video since the last one did so well. I'll see you guys some other time. Bye.